Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z.
And I'm Keith.
And we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we add humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On with the show.
A beginning is a very delicate time.
Hold on, I'm going, you fucking bitch. Is your mic on?
No.
There we go. That's
Why?
what.
Is that important?
I was like, I don't hear your voice. I don't hear your stinky voice.
Welcome to Screw It. We're just going to talk about racism. As friend of the pod, Sven rightly pointed out that if we like a movie, we typically don't have a lot to say about it, and thus, again, typically end up talking about structural racism, which I feel like we're pretty acknowledge ourselves, but it was
Yeah.
fun and a little humbling to hear from a third party.
Humbling or humbugling?
Shout out to Humboldt.
Shout out to Mapes.
Where? I want to say, so as
Pink
we're...
Final.
Huh? Why do you keep... Why do you keep jamming on my solo, bruh?
I just want you to know what it's like to be me. Sitting
You.
across from you. Hold on, where's my hat? Hey, my brother.
Hey, my brother.
Okay.
Some people call him my brother.
Fucking stupid. Anyway.
I call it a blue diamond almond.
Blue diamond almond. I don't like you at all. Blue diamond almond. Ah. You look at this blue diamond almond and you tell me you don't think about choking on a nut.
Oh, wow. I'm glad no one probably knows what's happening.
I'm glad to. God, I'm funny. How do you handle
What's that
being
movie called?
The Gift.
The Gift, indeed. Keeps giving.
Anyway, go ahead.
Shout out to noted Scientologist Giovanni Ribisi. That sucks. That was really a bummer to learn.
I know. I do love me some Ribisi. He's probably one of the only Scientologists, like active Scientologists,
Who's actually a decent actor.
who can do something and isn't like the most fucking annoying person you've ever seen in your life. Unlike Kirstie, racist parents, Allie.
Oh, was she?
Kirstie Alley? Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Beck, presumably, allegedly. I think he married a
He married
Scientologist.
Ribisi's sister, I
Is
believe.
that true?
I
Okay.
don't think it's not, like, as far as I know. Someone.
No, I meant...
That's how he got into Scientology,
Okay,
as far as
okay.
I know.
I meant, are you doing a bit?
Oh, I know. Oh, I knew, but then I was like, you're like, are you sure? And I'm like,
No,
now I'm
that's
not.
what I said. That's not what I said.
Whatever, it doesn't matter what you
Okay.
said. What matters is how I took it.
Oh. Fact versus feelings. No one loses.
True. Anyway, you were saying something.
Oh, fuck, who cares? It's Dune, everybody. Everybody's seen it. Everybody has opinions. I don't know.
Oh,
I gotta say, this is probably this is up there with films I've seen the most times at this point.
Yeah.
But it's all been in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't seem like it's saying much, but
Yeah.
I didn't really watch movies before the age of 18. That's a lie.
I was gonna say, are you full of shit right now? I watched.
I touched on this in the lobby. Though, that I don't think I had ever seen it before, like 20 years ago. Or no, not even that. Oh, God, has it been that long?
Girl.
I guess so. 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what specifically about this movie sparked my little kid brain's interest so much.
Oh, I think there's plenty to.
No, I just mean like I can tell you why I liked certain movies. Like I know, like I obsessed over Return of the Jedi because of the weird Princess Leia bondage.
It's the same shit. There's definite,
Well, okay,
like, fetishy undertones.
Well, that's
to
true. That's
so
true.
much of the shit in this movie.
it's true. I guess that's true. But I just can't figure out what thing. Like I don't have like a scene that I remember.
see.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah, well, it's
So
more
I'm like, what?
insipid.
Yeah. I think the things that I don't appreciate about it are things that are kind of not necessarily things that are not like I've never read the books. I don't think I could do it. I know a lot of people are like, books are so great, but those same people are like, and I've read The Lord of the Rings, and they were great too. And I just don't have a lot of, science fiction is fun, but when fantasy comes into it, and when you start doing things like royal lineages and start I can't. I'm like, this is why.
Right.
This is why Game of Thrones didn't interest me.
Right.
Because there was so much talk of like.
Right, and this is what they all share.
Right.
It's this sort of palace intrigue.
Yes.
Royals,
bloodlines.
battling for control over things.
Correct. And there's it's a very colonial look at like
1,000%.
like how to approach fantasy, like who's the rightful ruler of all this land, and it's like I can't really.
This though is the only one that has, and it's not even great at it, but a sort of indigenous resistance.
Right? Yeah, for sure. But a white dude comes in and says, "Oh, I'm the guy you need."
Well, I mean. Yes, and I'll say that this is all a fictionalized universe.
Oh, yeah, true.
I mean, I think technically Brune. Why don't? It's because Herbert and Dune, and so my brain wants to say Herbert Brune, who is a composer that is someone that looms large and.
Well, that you know personally.
Never met him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he died before.
Oh, but you know his kids. Yeah, that's what it is. But that's what I mean. You know. You have personal link to him,
right? So it's basically his intellectual and lineage is why I ended up here. Anyway,
wow,
this guy knows what I'm talking about. Shout out. Anyway, Frank Herbert. I think I don't know. I don't know but I think. That he conceived of the Dune universe as in our universe, just in the future or in the past or whatever.
Right, 10,191. Right.
There we go. So to that end, I brought that up just to say that like the Atreides are white compared to the Fremen in that they are part of the Landsrad, which are part of this ruling class across the universe. That are seemingly just houses, meaning bloodlines of ruling families that get to control
everything. Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Go quietly. No other great house of the Landsdraad must ever know of the Emperor's aid to the Baron. The entire Landsdraad would turn against the Baron and the Emperor.
We say white again. It's not about skin tone.
Except for in this movie. No, I'm kidding. In this movie, and especially in the new one, I think the thing that I Googled it to make sure, or to see if it was actually in the book. But like the Baron being like so gross, but also queer, is so annoying to me. Like I think he's a great character, and he could be like very much, like you could have like a lot to say about his character in how, it's played and how it's, but there's like almost something that feels slightly insidious about how he's the only character that's even remotely
presented with any
anything queer
at all.
And I feel like Fade is.
I guess it's not even coded. It's
right. He's just like Fade, and like I honestly, the scene that I hate the most, it legitimately makes me sick to my stomach, is no one's gonna be. It's the one where it's not the whole scene, but a snippet from the scene when fucking, I don't know, his other nephew or whatever comes in.
I think.
Yeah, and he's just like eating like a cow tongue or something.
A part out of a cow.
And he's just like rubbing in his mouth and like rubbing it all over his face. Oh God, it makes me want to puke. Like I'm physically sick watching that. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it. I don't know why. It's just like, and then when he leaves, he's got the like milk mouth thing going. The Baron has like milk mouth, and he's like, Fade, none, Fade. And I'm like, oh, it's the combination of like milk mouth with touching meat. I'm like, oh God, I hate it so much. But watching that scene, I was like, oh no, they're not like implying that he's gay. They're just, he's gay. Right. And I like Googled it, and they're like, yeah, he's in the books. He's the only gay character. And I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Well, that's otherwise how you going to know he's bad?
Exactly. And I'm like, oh,
so that's gross.
That's the thing.
And ugly.
Right. He's ugly, gross, and diseased. And gay.
All right.
Oh, that's so subtle. So like that is where I'm like,
is he also dark skinned in the books?
And I'm just like, do it. And I think that's something that I hate it even more about like the new, like one, love Stellan Skarsgård. Give me some Stellan Skarsgård anytime. He's playing the Baron, and all he's doing is being fat. And that's it. Like, that's his menacing.
He does hover.
Yeah, he hovers in a long skirt. And let me just tell you, I'm going to tell you that comparatively, Baron, when I was like,
nothing.
I was so excited because I was like, well, I don't want to say I was so excited. I had expectations from Stellan Skarsgård playing the Baron. I was like, he's going to do nothing. It's like the music happens and he's just floating in like a dress. And I was like, what's going on? I'm like, we know this. We know that he can, like, that's not even that impressive that he can float. Like, that's it. And that was like it. That was all that happened. I was like, wait, that's scary. And then when they're in this scene, it's like almost could be interesting. But when like Oscar Isaac is like in the chair naked, and he's at the other side of the table, and you just see like him go up and like float across the table. It's like almost a cool scene.
Right.
But you've already seen that he floats, so that's not surprising.
It's not a reveal of any kind.
You've already seen you've seen everything, and it's like nothing about that is unnerving and the music is like trying to scare you, and I'm like, nothing about this is even remotely intimidating or scary or anything. And then you watch this one, and the first fucking scene with the Baron terrifying, absolutely fucking terrifying. He's just floating around and screaming, and then he's just like immerses himself in a fucking oil rain, and then pulls the plug on someone, like literally, and just like kills them. And he's just like, okay, yeah. And everybody's like, it's one of the most disturbing scenes in a movie. Like, truly, I cannot watch it without feeling uncomfortable. It is disturbing as fuck. And then you watch the new one and you're like, okay, everything is so tame. This is so fucking tame. And like, you don't have to make him gay. Like, taking away his like homosexuality or like the queer undertones or whatever doesn't mean that nothing else can, like, you can make him even scarier. It was so confusing to me. I mean, obviously I really didn't enjoy the new Dune. But the thing that really confused me is the reason why I was like excited to see it was because I was like, oh, I'm going to get so much more world building because they're broken up into 2 movies, and everything that happened, I'm like, I know
this.
The
third has been announced.
Well, yeah, they're going to do a third. Messiah is like, they're doing the book, like they're doing they're doing. Okay, sorry. The first 2 movies are, I think, the first book.
Yeah, okay.
And then the third movie is based on Messiah.
Okay.
So they've only planned on doing 3 movies. But I was very excited because I knew that they were splitting it up into 2 movies. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get more world building. Yep. I'm going to get a lot more storyline. I'm going to understand a lot of the things that I feel like maybe they didn't pay attention. There was nothing in the new ones that they did. One, the music is trash.
We haven't seen part 2 yet.
We haven't. No. But like, nothing in the first one did anything to enhance the world building. And it's like,
you got dude watering the palm trees
that you see one time and then they burn them and that's it. Yeah.
Which I forgot, like, until this watch through. I mean, watching Dune Part 1. I was like, that's it. But shout out, Mapes gets introduced and then killed, basically. So, in the 84 version as well.
Right, yeah, she's in a little bit.
She gets introduced. It's very heavy, you know.
Yeah.
Connects to prophecy.
Right.
She opens Paul's door when he's getting hunted and sought. And then next time we see her, she's choking.
Well, we see her walking down a corridor, and then we see her, and then Leto finds her, which is exactly what happened this last time. Like, in the movie, it's just like the mom's introduction, like Jessica's introduction to her, is longer. But like the same thing, like
in which one?
In the new Dune, and that's like she has like the fucking tooth knife or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Chris knife.
And I think honestly, what I didn't like as much in the new one is how hard. Like, I felt it was annoying, and I felt like it was. I feel like it plays into. I've seen some things that talk about like comprehension, like reading comprehension and like movie comprehension and like storytelling comprehension, and
media
I feel like
literacy kind of stuff.
Right, yeah, media literacy. And that's what I feel like I was getting out of the new Dune, is that there a lot of things are just like being told to you repeatedly, but like no information is actually
new information.
Well, no, given. I felt like there was so little information that was actually given.
Yeah.
And it was like very like the scene with whatever. I don't have to. I'm just gonna say this, and then we'll go back to the 1984 version. Like the amount of times they're like, I mean, they do this in the 1984 one, but I feel like they do it. I mean, one, I feel like it was 1984, and 2, they packed so much into one movie. So like a lot of it, a lot of other things, but like in the new movie, they're like, they just don't fucking shut up about Paul being like Mahdi and fucking Lisal Gaib or whatever. I don't remember how to say it. And I'm like, oh God, I don't care.
No, I know.
Don't
That goes
care.
so hard.
And honestly, no offense to Timothée Chalamet or whatever, he looks like he's 11 and a half years old. And I feel like he has no gravity. I understand that they're supposed to sort of be like a little kid. You know, like you're supposed to like think like, how can this little kid, like this little nerd be the one that, but that's all that like the scene where he was like fighting that dude in the end, I was like, no. No, I don't think so. Anyway, whatever. The 1984 one, though, there's so much more interesting color happening with it. There's so much more interesting, like, when I was a kid, this is, like, they do a lot of, like, internal monologuing and, like, internal dialogue. Like, they're like, oh, how can this, whatever. And the interesting thing sort of is that a lot of that came from cut scenes,
right?
That they were like, they had to cut them, so they just like dubbed over someone looking. And when I was a kid, I thought they were all psychic. I thought they were all communicating to each other psychically. Yeah. I did not understand that they were like, because it seemed like they were responding to them. Like it would seem like, and so
well, and there's
like,
also hardly any, if not none. Treatment of the voice to make it distinct from their speaking voice. You know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah.
Okay, maybe there's a tiny bit of like echo or delay or reverb on it, but
yeah. It's I like
and the way it was shot too. I mean, and again, this is because it was done afterwards.
Right.
But like Paul will say something, and then it's a cut to Max von Sydow, and then you hear his thoughts.
Right. Yeah.
As though he's reacting,
responding to. Yeah.
Your suit is fitted desert fashion. Who told you how to do that?
No one. It seemed the proper way.
That it is.
He shall know your ways as if born to them.
Yeah, but he'll be like, and half the time they say it out loud too. But this is the thing. I honestly, like, a lot of times, like, I prefer it the way that it is because I saw, like, some of it, I couldn't handle watching, like, the director's cut or whatever. I don't remember. It's not director's cut, but it's, like, it's, like, a much longer version where they just, like, put in not real scenes and, like, just have someone reading text.
Yeah.
Drives me insane. Can't handle that. Don't know how people are like, I'll be like, this is a much better version. I'm like, it's not a film anymore. It's just
no, it's
an
not.
idea.
I find those interesting, but not watchable as a film.
Right. Anyway, like the reason why is they would dub in the scenes where the people were just saying the words out loud. They were the same thoughts, but they were just saying them. Like the scene would be slightly longer, and they'd just be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe." They would just be like saying it still to themselves a lot of times, but it was just like, but their voiceover was still in their head.
Okay.
And then they would add the extended scene with just them being like, "Oh, whatever." With this thought out loud and so I'm like, it would literally be like they would be saying things like 2 to 3 times because they weren't just like redoing the whole thing. They were taking what was already in there and adding to it. I see. So I was like,
you'd have the theatrical version of the scene.
Yes, and then you would have the additional scene, where they actually said it to themselves out loud or whatever. and so you would just be repeating, and that's
No,
when I was
that's-
like, no, I can't do this. I can't. And that, and with like, and it was just
Production sketches and
yeah,
shit.
I'm like, oh my God, I fucking hate. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And yeah, whatever. Anyway, so it was like, it's not interesting, but I like how they do that because I think it adds an eeriness to it.
Yeah,
I definitely
agree.
And I think it's like it's not the best storytelling because obviously if you have to say everything and you can't show
Yes.
it. But the same would go for if they
Compare with the theatrical release of Blade Runner.
right, exactly, right. So like, but you know, I think it's sort of a better telling of it than like if you had like the actual scenes where they're just saying all this stuff out loud. That's really boring.
Potentially,
So
yeah.
it adds an interesting layer to it.
Yeah, but to be clear, that's not all that was cut.
No, that wasn't all that was cut, but a lot of those internal monologues were just cut from a longer scene.
Right.
And then they would just put that, and I was like, oh my God. I don't think that's what all of the longer
Right.
scenes were. And I don't think all of the dubbed over were just taken from longer scenes, or if they
Right.
were, like, it wasn't just people talking to themselves, but is basically like they only added that in when someone said it already, like in another scene.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
it drove me crazy to try. I was like, I can't be a part of this. I don't know what.
I won't be a party.
Yeah, I will not be party to this viewing of Dune. I absolutely rebuke this one. Anyway. What? I don't remember what I was gonna say, and then you laughed, so then I felt like I was doing the thing. It's a very strange movie, but I was watching it last night, and I was really thinking about like how unusual it kind of is that like. I'm like, this movie, I mean, some of the special effects, like, I definitely think, like, one scene that does not hold up is the one where they're folding space and they're just showing, like, the fucking...
I fucking love that shit.
It's hilarious. I'm not saying that it does, but it's just, I'm like, this doesn't tell me anything. This does not... And the fact that they cut so much and they left that in, I'm like, what? This is not explanatory of anything.
Well, yeah, man, there's a really... And I think the success of 2001 is maybe to blame for this, but
yeah.
there were so many sci-fi movies that had something like that from whenever that came out, 69 or whatever, until late 80s at least.
Yeah.
Even as technology evolved.
Yeah. I know. It's...
I kind of love it as a sort of relic of.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not complaining about the scene. To be clear, I'm just like it. That's really
I totally agree with you. It doesn't.
Comparatively, I'm like this movie kind of holds up. Like I don't know,
but I did feel. I remember commenting on this that because it's given so much time and weight.
Yeah.
In the 1984 version.
Yeah.
When it comes to the part in the recent Dune, when the Atreides are leaving Caladan for Arrakis, it's just cut and they're there, and I missed.
Well, also it doesn't seem like there's as much like gravity put on space traveling because of the spice and that being like and I'm like,
right.
I forgot
again, it's just
about
told
that.
to you,
kind of, yeah. But
and again, I don't know. I'm sort of. I want to, and maybe I'm being more precautious, conservative than I need to be, but like, I'm a little like wait and see about part 2.
Yeah.
I know that if you're thinking over 2-3 movies, part 1 is maybe gonna suffer, or as far as like, but one of my biggest issues with it is that everything is weighted equally, and the only thing we're given to go by is music cues,
right? That are
which is one of my biggest pet peeves. If a music cue has to tell me how to feel, fuck you.
Well, also if a music cue has to tell you how to feel because you're not and that's the only thing in the movie that is giving anything any gravity.
That's what I mean.
No. I'm saying like you're doing a really terrible job of telling a story. Like if I have to, like if without a music cue, I would have no idea what this scene was supposed to imply. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But without a music cue, if I didn't like if I still don't understand what's going on, I just know I'm supposed to feel something.
Right.
That's when I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like that's what the new Dune felt like. Like the music, hated it. I absolutely hated the new music. I did not like all of the weird, like tribally weird, like sing song. I'm like, I don't actually want you. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when they show a desert and then suddenly you hear like a woman being like, I'm like, no, we don't need to
But you
do
loved
that.
it in the cell.
But that's different.
Oh shit.
No, because they don't just do it when they show the desert.
Okay.
They do it throughout, like they do it to in for like a dream.
Okay.
And it's a lot of like very strange. It feels like, and also it's a non-white director, so I just feel different. And like the costume designer and a lot of things are like within the film are like not necessarily American, so I don't associate it with like, you know, the same sort of
Orientalism.
yeah, like the same sort of Orientalism, but also the same sort of like weird fetishism that comes with the desert. Like in Dune or in The Cell, like there's the scene, like when she's in the desert, there's like a very blue sky, which you never see anymore. You never see a blue sky in the desert anymore. It's always
It's always orange.
an orangish sky. You never see
Because
that.
everything's
Right,
gotta be
because
orange.
you have to have that sepia tint so that you know that it's the desert, and it drives me fucking insane.
I didn't know this until I just watched something I watched before we recorded here. That in the book, apparently, the sky is not blue on Arrakis,
Interesting.
and so that was a hurdle for filming in 1984.
Yeah, I bet.
But I did think that the water is never blue last night when we were watching it, except for the water of life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they do show like black water or like just not. Yeah,
Which I think is very clever
Yeah.
and impressive
But-
choice. Apparently, the blue eye, the Fremen, the spice eyes had to be rotoscoped every scene.
I bet, because there was a couple times you can see where someone's like in like a quick, like they don't, like you won't see it, and I'm like, oh shit. And I honestly prefer, like I know that it's just gonna sound like I'm just saying I like the 1984 version better because, but I like
Because
the
old.
way but I like the way that they do it in 1984 because in the new one it's just like, oh, their eyes are blue. Oh, cool.
Yep.
Crazy. But in the way that they do it in the 1984 one, it looks a little like
Right.
disconcerting. You're
Right.
like, that doesn't look realistic. And I feel like that was sort of the point, was that you were supposed to feel like you're looking at something
Otherworldly.
that is not in nature.
Right.
Like you're not, like it turns your eyes completely blue. Not like your eyes go from brown to blue. Like that's not really
Right.
what they're saying,
Right.
which is what,
The
you know,
entire eye.
right. Your eyes are like, you don't look like, it's something that even if somebody doesn't know that you don't naturally have blue eyes, they're going to look at you and be like, whoa, your eyes are weird,
Right.
you know? And that's something I feel like gets communicated in the 1984 version that doesn't feel like it gets communicated in the current, which I feel like in the current version, everything was just like brown.
Yep.
Everything was brown. Everything is
Gray.
black, white, and brown and gray and muted and very earth tones. And I'm like, this is so fucking boring.
Yeah, which
Like I don't like that. Honestly, there's this like I have to look up what it is because I really need to. There's like I love, one of the things I really like about Tarsem Singh is how he uses color.
oh yeah.
But he did a movie that I could not watch because hold on. I can't remember what it is. It's something like some fucking no, it's not.
Was it an Audi commercial?
No, I think it's Immortals, and it's about like it has to do with like Zeus and like, and it was just completely gold. Like everything in it was just like so overly saturated with like, it looked like sepia gold. Everything was just like so one tone, and I was like, I can't watch this. I was like, I can't. I was like, I've not tried to watch it since the first time I tried to watch it, which was like at least 10 years ago, probably more than that. But I was just like, this doesn't feel like Tarsem saying, you know.
Yeah.
So like I don't like that in general, like if everything is like a very muted tone throughout,
my complaint about it is that
it.
there's no contrast
Correct.
between Arrakis and any other world that is shown, at least in the first.
But there's also like not even a contrast between like the Fremen and anyone else, you know, so you don't really have like, there's a lot of like, yeah, it's very strange. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not going to say, yeah, I don't know. There's, it's a really, like, there's stupid, silly stuff in this one that I love that feels like when he's fucking riding the worm for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's the fucking music that's going on. That shit is so fucking 80s. I love it. I fucking love it. But it's like, it's so dated and so 80s. And it's just like,
it's very
it's just
cheesy.
Like,
yeah,
we're riding the worm.
The electric guitar comes in. Yeah.
And he's just like riding the worm.
Thanks, Toto.
It's so fucking silly, and I love it.
And it's obviously green screen, you know. It's very good.
It's so bad. I love it so much.
Yeah.
But the music from Dune, from 1984 Dune, is so good. It is so good. Even the Toto shit, I gotta say. Even the Toto shit is like good, especially in comparison to the new Dune. And fucking, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like so much of it is just like so fucking badass. I don't know. Like the theme song, everything about it is so.
Well, you
good.
also, I mean, I guess. Again, this is probably just the bias of my age or whatever, you know, like, but you see the scale of everything and you imagine like how huge the sets were. And like, I know I had a gigantic budget, like $42 million or something. And,
in the 1984 Dune? Yeah, let me look.
Which for the time was
that's insane.
Pretty big. But it's so elaborate, and you see the care given and all the detail done to all the crazy shit, all the sets, you know? Like,
yeah, it's...
When you see something, and like, I think there's an argument to be made, you know, like, I think you could definitely make a Dune that was pared down, where you went for sort of a minimalist approach.
Yeah.
But...
Right.
Properly minimalist, where, you know, like, I feel like you would have to throw away a bunch of the shit in favor of whatever it is you want to focus on. If you want to focus on the plot, and anything else, then throw away the fucking ornithopters, and have them be biplanes or something. You know, like fucking obvious models. You know, like that would be interesting.
Right.
Do a Dune that's like.
Right.
Grandiose in epic proportion, but like not trying to impress me on like special effects, or sets or anything. You know, like make it a German expressionist.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, that shit. I mean, I know that like this is where I think I can feel very like out of touch with like today's moviegoers.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm like, obviously movies aren't made for people like me so much. But I've seen like, I don't know, I got like sort of excited because I saw a couple things. Like Jessica Lange was like quoted as saying like movies are being like totally destroyed by like corporate greed. And the artist's vision is like secondary, and so movies are shit now. And I'm like, yes. And then Emily Blunt, I think that's who's married to Jim from The Office, right? Emily Blunt.
That sounds right.
Okay. She said something like she she gets really like frustrated and annoyed that like so many things are like based on like algorithmic potential sort of and don't really she's like, I don't want my career to be decided by something that has to, and that's how I feel with a lot of things. Like, and there was another post that I saw that said like a David Cross and Odenkirk
I saw that
thing
too.
got like completely scrapped because of like the marketing of
The projection of the
and I'm like, you scrapped something because of how you thought marketing on, and so many like, because I was thinking about it last night when we were watching Dune, how like marketing in the past, like sometimes you'd have like a surprise hit just because
somebody took a risk.
somebody took a risk, but just because like sometimes like marketing wasn't the only factor in viewing something. And Netflix has sort of done this too, because Netflix will just like doesn't really bother with marketing at all.
Right.
Which is a very interesting approach. And it just like does whatever it wants. And it has like hits and misses. And people watch whatever they fucking watch on there. And that's like, I think that's a more interesting approach in the terms of like marketing wise. But obviously they still go by an algorithm and they still go by. So like that can be like tricky, but that's just an aside. But like in the past, like you would market things, and sometimes even if you put a bunch of money on something, if people didn't have an interest for it, they weren't going to go watch it.
Right.
But you might have a movie that people went to see and word of mouth let you know that it was a really good movie. But that thing doesn't really happen nowadays. One, because you don't give time for anything to succeed by word of mouth, because things are in the theater at most for a month.
Yeah, right.
If they're not a instant hit. Like they can be in there for a couple months if they're a hit, if they make a lot of money. But like they're not going to stay in there for any extended period of time whatsoever. And things are marked as like a failure because and they're made for like audiences. I don't know. Like it's interesting to me because I've been seeing like an inundation sort of, or inundated amount of like people who you wouldn't necessarily expect, like people who are making money off of like movies being like, no, I don't actually like how we're doing this, because I don't want to have to only make shit that's stupid because that's what they think is going to make money. I don't want to only have to make shit that sucks because nobody wants to take risks. And like that being sort of like what people who have money and means are saying, it means that it's actually gotten pretty bad. But like a movie in the past, like marketing was done, but a lot of times when marketing failed, it was less about you didn't advertise it enough, or it's that you didn't like, you chose to focus on a part of it that wasn't actually interesting to people, or you spent a lot of money on marketing things like giving out t-shirts at parades and people are like, what the fuck is this? Like, but nowadays it's like there's so much that it's almost like the movie is secondary to the marketing of the movie, which is so bizarre to me. Like people will like market something and I don't know, I think it's because of like shit like TikTok and the way that like people will legitimately like post like, I don't know, like I don't want to, I hate when people do the thing of like TikTok is
to blame.
Right. That's not what I mean. I just mean like that sort of like quick scroll.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Instagram and Facebook, all these platforms do it. But like TikTok popularized watching things.
It's really Vine. Let's call it. Let's call it what it is.
TikTok popularized watching TV, like edited TV on in small increments.
Okay.
And a lot, like, it's a very, I don't know if it still happens on there, but for a while, like, once the pandemic hit and for the past couple years, there's been like weird sort of like accounts on TikTok that will just like show like 3 minutes of a TV show, and they'll just like the whole TV show they'll post the whole TV show, and people will be like, I'm watching like this entire movie just in 3-minute increments, and they're just like going through. So it's like there's a need for, and oh God, I'm getting big brained about this, and I'm sorry. I'll try to stop soon. But I was like, back when, because I've tried to do things like make things interesting, make things, to try to like appeal to the masses. And so I was watching something, and it said that like for YouTube videos, and I tried doing this, and you would not believe the amount of time and absolute like hard drive space this takes up. Maybe hard drive is the wrong, but like it is so, what is it when it's like CPU? Like it's just like through the roof, like nothing's working because of how much shit you're doing. It says that to make an interesting YouTube video, to make something that is engaging, you have to change something on the screen every 7 seconds.
Oh, I see.
So every 7 seconds, something has to change. And I started sort of like looking at how TV and movies do things, and they're starting to do that sort of same thing where,
right.
And you'll find it in like fight scenes a lot. You'll find it in things where things are broken up in such a way that it's not really storytelling anymore. You're not really seeing anything that is interesting.
Right. The changes are just changes to change so that
yes,
your attention is kept,
correct,
not
correct,
for any other.
Correct. It's like just a visual. It's just a visual. Like it'll go back and forth between a character and like two characters talking. Doesn't need to. It could be, right. Like one, it'll just like go to someone else's face for a second, and it'll like, a lot of things are shot in ways and edited in ways to keep you visually stimulated so that your attention doesn't go elsewhere, instead of trying to make a story that people are interested in watching. And I think that sort of approach to things, which is like, again, plot is secondary, story is secondary, characters are secondary, all of these things are secondary to how do we make something look semi-interesting. And it's like AI is taking over, like all of these things are happening where people are like, well, it'd be easier if we just, and so a lot of things are like completely mindless, completely, and I don't want to say this to imply that like everything that you see nowadays or there's nothing good, but I'm saying like the things that are the most going to have the most funding, things that are going to have the most like interest to people are going to be things that for someone who has been like someone like us, who we were raised on like 80s TV and like really like grungy sort of like, special effects and like practical stuff is really cool. They're not going to be that interesting because it's like there's too much going on. I can't pay attention to this.
Right.
There's too much going on. I don't really know I don't know what's supposed to be happening because I can't really pay attention because there's too much going on. And I'm not saying that like it's guaranteed that like no one our age is going to be interested in anything new, because obviously that's not true. However, like, my point is that, like, the things that people are interested in are sort of like the algorithm and sort of like how things appear to be on, so how like marketable something is on social media, how much you're going to talk about something, how much your kids are going to talk about, all this stuff is like factored in, but like that's not actually how that works. And so it's like they're trying to like,
we're butting up against it because of shit like this legislature about TikTok this went through,
Right.
which seemingly was pushed through or able to be pushed through because of the unfortunate side effect of pro-Palestine
Yeah. Correct.
messaging.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the
people.
powers that be.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's seemingly why. Because you may recall several times in its short history,
Yeah.
in the U.S. at least,
Yeah.
there have been at
Right.
least one other attempt to ban TikTok.
Right. Correct.
I feel.
Yeah.
I think that's so. And at this point, and we're recording in late April 2024, there's a bill that has passed both houses of Congress and is just apparently waiting on presidential approval.
Oh, I thought it was already signed.
Oh, maybe. That's the last I heard. Anyway. And it's not an outright ban. It's just that it has to be sold or whatever.
Yeah, but the way it basically, like, it will be banned if it's not sold to someone
that's
who
what it
would
is.
do the things that the
Oh, okay.
people who own it now are not willing to
I see.
do to suppress things. Like they don't want anything to risk the election instead of doing like the way you're going to. But also it has to do, it's not just TikTok, like it's called the TikTok ban, but it doesn't just affect TikTok. Obviously it affects every social media platform because it has to do with your ability to, like talk about things freely. Like anything that suppresses your ability to talk
Which
about.
Meta has clearly demonstrated it's willing to do.
Correct. Yes. And I want to say, like, I have like a burner, not a burner, like a private Twitter account that I just started tweeting on because I'm like that. I've had it for years, but I never tweeted. I know you follow it, so you can see all my juicy goss. I just was like tweeting about like how I literally sent a tweet that was like, white people scare me because white people will always like choose their whiteness and their own comfort over anyone and
Anything
anything,
else.
and it's really scary.
Not even their own
to me.
comfort.
Right.
Just the perception of access to.
Correct. Yeah. So I said that and immediately got an email that the visibility of that tweet will be like limited because of my hateful language.
Oh, nice.
Because I said white people scare me, I'm assuming. And I was like, what the fuck?
You say how
People
Nelson
will
Mandela's grandson got taken off of Twitter?
No. No, but like literally people will show screenshots of where it's like X didn't find a problem with this account, and it's an account that's literally like at N word.
Yeah. Or
And they'll be like freedom of speech. There's no hateful content found. It'll be like literally someone saying the N word. And I'm like,
kill all Jews.
yeah, right. And I'm like, what is happening? What? And it's so these are the kinds of things that are like allowed to happen on social media, but TikTok is bad because people are talking about Palestine and talking about the negative.
No. Let's be a little careful here. It's banned because the Chinese narrative, which is
true,
ultimately anti-American, anti-democratic,
right, yeah. I forget about that,
and also Russia.
Right, yeah. All those things, all of those things.
What I said was much more specific and accurate than what you were saying.
But yeah, it's anyway, all of that.
Well, but I think, and we just had last year, God, was it only a year ago that we had the writer's strike?
Yeah. Oh my God,
2 years ago.
It feels like forever ago, but yeah, it just ended not long ago.
That's fucking wild.
I know.
No, I think all of these things are being tested, and they always will be.
Yes.
To be clear.
Yes.
I don't know. I've been watching a lot of things about, not a lot of things. In the past 72 hours, I've watched things on capitalist realism, I think is the term. Mark Fisher is one of the guys, one of the more recent guys. Herbert Marcuse.
Yeah.
German philosopher who came to the States. He was part of the Frankfurt School.
unfamiliar with all of these people, but I'm like, yep.
Well, when I was talking to you and Bunny about hauntology,
Yeah.
that factors in. Anyway, and Mark Fisher is not like the first guy to talk about this. Like he was talking about Deleuze is one of the guys who was a French philosopher.
Toulouse?
Deleuze.
Deleuze. Okay.
I don't remember how it's
fine.
spelled. It's got a Z in it.
Okay.
So that should help you find
Thank you so much.
No, but the shorthand being, and I think Zizek talks about this shit, but, and I forget, it's Zizek or, I don't know, somebody else. The tagline for this is, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is an alternative to capitalism, or
Right,
the end
correct.
of capitalism.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something the three of us talk about a lot.
Yes, correct. The three of us being Keith, me, and my
And
BFF.
the Holy Father. Bunny.
Yeah, Bunny. But I think specifically ways that I think the reason why watching Dune, past and present, I think why these sort of things feel prescient or whatever to talk about with this is because it is sort of like, it's an interesting way because like, sorry, I'm having trouble putting it into words. The idea that there's like a singular savior for people is a very Western and colonial concept.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that like the newer version of this same tired story feels watered down even from the 80s version. It feels so telling that you're like, I feel like I'm watching a muted version of just telling me that a white dude is going to come along and fix everything singularly and by holding power over people underneath him, by commanding an army, by and this concept is very directly colonial because the push away from community, the push away from more than one person being a solution, the idea that you have to work together in order to solve a problem, and a singular individual is never going to have the answer, is never going to be able to do anything. To build that narrative would be more dangerous to capitalism than to just have the idea that one person could end it all.
Right.
Because one person can't. One person can never. One person will
Well,
never.
more specifically, if you're waiting for a savior,
Yes.
then
And you can be like, okay, but Jesus isn't. No, we're not. I'm not even talking about the idea. I mean, yes, that's one way to look at it. But in the storyline of Dune, in the storyline of a lot of things, even you could even like break down the Matrix a little bit, which is one of the reasons why I like Matrix Revolutions. Is that the
is it Resurrection?
Resurrection? Yeah, I think is that it was not about a singular one, and that was something that was extremely. I'm like, yes, this is the point that I feel like needed to be made the whole time, is that like it wasn't actually just him.
That's why people hate it.
Correct.
One of the things that people hate about it,
right.
I think, is that it undoes that
exactly
reading of the previous ones.
Right. So, but also because I really hate the whole time I was like, but Trinity does everything he does. I don't understand why he's the one. And then that happened, and I literally screamed, and I think I jumped up and down on the bed. I might have, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
I was so excited for that, and I was so ready for that. But like the idea of like a singular person coming along and being able to undo this is why they push vote for your vote for a president, vote for a person, vote for a singular individual to change
No,
everything.
absolutely.
It cannot happen that way. It just can't happen that way. So like pushing the idea of like a singular
and that's why there was
Messiah.
There was only MLK.
Yeah, right. Correct.
If you're lucky, you hear about Malcolm X.
Right.
But only in
Right.
like
usually only in comparison to MLK.
right contrast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only Rosa Parks
Right. Correct.
acting on her own fucking whimsy that she decided to
Correct.
protest.
Yes.
Yeah, there's tons of
Right.
I do want to defend Dune, at least in the sense that one of the things that I like about Paul's arc, such that I've experienced it, which is only these two movies, is that he betrays all his privilege.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's a little
Yes.
forced upon him, right? Like he doesn't
Right,
have that
yeah.
much choice. It's
Well,
not like
yeah.
he could
His
just
privilege disowns him, and then he's like, "All right, well,
right. But
Yeah.
he doesn't just say, he doesn't spend his time trying to, well, I guess he does.
Well, I was gonna say the only thing about that
I mean, he does. I mean, he teams up with the Fremen.
right.
I mean, it is presented, at least in the films,
Yeah.
as far as I know, is that he rallies them to.
Yeah. Right.
But the point is to shut down
Yeah.
the exploitation of Iraqis.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that
yeah, but
they can't be ignored.
right. Correct, but I mean this is something that I picked up at least in the 1984 version of Dune. He's like whoever has control of the spice controls everything.
Yeah, right.
And so it does. I mean, I've seen people basically like there is a criticism, like one of the points of Dune is like the criticism of like a singular Messiah, like is sort of like, a criticism or like not a criticism on the book, but Dune itself is sort of like, it creates like this, you can't expect one man to be an actual real Messiah, and you can't expect a Messiah without corruption. If I understand what people have said about it. I tend to check out when a bunch of dudes start talking about what the real meaning of anything. No offense.
To whom?
I don't know. Anybody listening, I guess.
Any dudes listening?
Yeah, all our dude listeners. And so I think that's something that I was like, oh right, he's doing the thing where he's like, oh, I come from power, so obviously I'm the best choice to show you how to be
right.
powerful, and that's again a very white colonialist concept of like and this is a way that like whiteness and colonialism will look at other cultures and other practices and other people and other ways of living is like you're not trying to fight. It's like the crab in the bucket thing. Like the Jordan Peterson, his favorite thing.
Lobster daddy.
That right. It's that sort of like concept of like that's how people of color are viewed. Like, oh, you're all working together, so you're just gonna hold each other down. And there's like this weird sort of like idea that like if one person doesn't take charge and do it all, then you're all going to fail because there's no it's the same thing about like the
You can't organize if it's not hierarchical.
correct. Yes. And so if you have like a community of people that work together and aren't trying to make that hierarchy within their community, then it's like this is broken down or like something's wrong or like why doesn't you're never going to succeed, you're never going to have, this is very backwards, this is savage, this is but also like I was thinking of something else, not just that not just I had another analogy that I was like, this is perfect, and then I completely forgot. I was saying crabs in a bucket, and then something else was said, and then I don't remember. but yeah, like, there has to be sort of this power given to one person who then delegates the power that goes to the rest of the people. And that's the only way that you can survive, or that's the only way that things can get done, is like one singular person takes
But
charge
that's
of everyone.
clearly like
And it's
anybody
not
who studied. I mean, if you've ever spent any time reading or participating in any kind of organizing,
yeah.
you know that I mean, the thing about hierarchies is they reinforce themselves.
Right. Right.
And in that way, they're stable.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're good.
Right. Yes.
Because they definitely calcify. They
Right.
stagnate. And the person at the top ends up, that's their
yeah.
raison d'etre, is
Right.
that the whole enterprise becomes keeping them at the top.
Right. Right. Right.
And so a decentralized organizing structure is very hard to combat because
Yeah.
you can't, there's not a leader
Right.
there's not a head to cut off.
Correct. Right. Exactly. So that's another thing that makes people be like, we can't do that
Right.
because that's just, and I think, it has to do with, fear, but it also has to do with just not understanding that things are different. Other places can be different. Other places can have successful, and like you said, like it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. It's easier to imagine that, like it's so terrifying to people. This is something that is so wild to me. Like people will just be like, well, this is just how it's always been. So if we change it, it will be so much worse. And it's like it's a very strange sort of like, I don't want it to be different
It's a
because
weird
it's always
dichotomy.
been like this. And it's like, right, but it could be better. And they're like, but will it be? And you're like, well, it won't be if you don't do anything differently. Like people will get into a very, very like, I'm barely holding on as it is. So if anything changes, I will not hold on. And it's like, yeah, what if that sort of like mentality wasn't your entire existence? And it's like, you mean I won't exist anymore? And it's like, no, that's not what anyone's saying.
The holy warriors. No one ever dreamed there were so many.
Would you recommend?
Yeah, man, if you've never seen it, if you have any interest in, well, gosh, there's so many ways to approach it. I think if you're a fan of 80s media, if you're a fan of 80s science fiction, if you're a fan of science fiction, if you're a fan of David Lynch or Kyle MacLachlan or...
Sean Young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's barely gets anything in
Right,
this movie, but... Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not an easy watch the first time.
No, yeah.
So, and it's long. I mean, it's not that long, but it feels
longer.
It feels big.
It feels, yeah.
There's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And a lot to process.
Yeah.
Visually and as far as information.
Yes.
And so it's kind of a commitment, and I understand if it's not the movie you want to throw on casually, or if you haven't seen it before. You know.
Don't get stoned and watch this. That's going to...
Probably not.
Not for the first time, at least.
Yeah.
That's going to be a terrible experience.
But if you're like me 20 years ago and you'd never seen it, definitely do it.
I think that's something that I felt frustrated about with watching the new one, is that like I'd sort of been convinced that this was a terrible movie because it was so different from the material. And so watching the new movie, I was like, nothing new is being presented to me. I know all of this because of what...
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, have I been gaslit my whole life into believing this movie fucking sucks?
No, totally.
Because I would always be like, oh, I really like that movie.
I'm
People
glad
would be
you
like,
said that.
oh, it's such a piece of shit. What a piece of shit movie. It's nothing like the books. It doesn't do any justice to the books.
More than that,
And
for me, it was...
Yes, it can be said that like it doesn't do justice in the sense that like it...
Yeah.
There's not a lot that, it's so compact.
I don't know. Have you met a film adaptation of a book?
Correct. But I'm like, nothing new was
Everybody
presented.
Seemed so thrilled about how Lord of the Rings turned out. Oh my God. But more than that, what I heard was, like it's basically that it's incomprehensible if you
Right.
haven't read the book.
Yeah.
And so the first time I watched it with someone who had or was familiar
Yeah.
enough with the books
Yeah.
to explain things that weren't easily apparent
Oh,
on
okay.
a first view,
Nice.
which helped a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's a valid critique that it may be impenetrable if you're
Right.
not familiar
Yeah.
with the material. I think you can watch it and still get plenty out of it without
sure, for
needing
sure.
all this
Yes.
fucking the
Yeah.
structure of the known
Yeah.
universe shit. Like you'll still get that it's a sort of hero cycle. Or
Yeah.
You'll get the power dynamics are clear.
Yeah.
Who's good and who's bad, or who you're supposed to be reading for.
I just want to say this was one of my favorite movies when I was like 5 years old. So clearly it's not that hard to comprehend what's going on in it.
Right.
I don't think I've ever told you this, but
Lucy?
Dune, the book Dune that I have.
Yes.
Wherever it is in our
Yeah.
apartment. That was the book I took with me on the aeroplane when I moved to little old Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And
Did you
I
read
read
2
what I
pages of it?
read on the plane is all I've ever read of the book.
Yeah.
Because I was like, can't do it.
Yeah. I had one somewhere where I tried to read it, and
Yeah, honestly, once I do the same with the Bible, with every anytime something is like this person begat, so I just check out. I immediately can't do it, and I feel like that's sort of how it starts out. And I was like, oh,
the
that's
thing that was
kind of-
intriguing that I didn't, at that point, I think I had only seen it. I'd probably seen the movie fairly recently, and
right?
only once,
Yeah,
maybe twice by that time. But when I tried to read the book, what again? I think I've said this on previous episodes. The thing that stuck out for me is how the Bene Gesserit
Yeah.
and their role in everything, which they're clearly in the '84 version of the film.
yeah,
They're clearly presented as an important factor,
yes. Right.
but you don't quite get the sense of the scope of that.
Right. I don't think I ever really I don't think it ever really clicked that one of the Bene Gesserits is also a Fremen.
Yeah, right.
And obviously that's what
This
happened.
is the first time that stuck for me,
I was like,
too.
oh, okay. Oh, I see. So, yeah. So clearly, Bene
Well, and there's a
Gesserit
thing
is like...
apparently, too, about how... Maybe was this in the recent film? I'm trying to remember where I got this.
You've done a lot of deep diving on Dune that I have not done, so I don't know.
Well, not super deep, but thank you.
In comparison to what I've done.
Right.
Yes.
And what I'm asking is this something in your brain as well as mine? That something about maybe Jessica had this information that the only message that had ever come out of Arrakis from the Bene Gesserit was the language that they use if it means it's a harsh environment. Like this thing that every Bene Gesserit knows that when you send your report home or whatever, you say that you use this language that means it's a harsh environment, both sort of ecologically as well as I think meaning they aren't able to get a foothold and do the work they're supposed to do as far as spreading prophecy and keeping their
Oh, I see.
hold on things. But it could also mean it also is a reference to prophecy. So and I could be getting this totally wrong.
Okay.
Because I don't remember the source for this.
Yeah.
But the idea that, well, it could have just been, hey, things on Arrakis are bleak. Mm-hmm. Or it could be, we're ready for a Messiah.
Yeah.
The groundwork for the Messiah has been laid, or like. No, not ringing any bells.
I have no idea.
Okay,
Sorry.
I could have made it all up.
That's one of my favorite things about you. What?
That I can't tell fact from reality.
No, that you can.
I can't tell fact from reality.
Not that.
Or fiction from imagination.
No, that's me. I can't tell. Yeah. It's that you can come up with really crazy things that you're like, oh, I read this somewhere. And then you're like, I don't know where I got that because I can't find any source of it. So it's so fascinating about you that sounds like I'm not being earnest, but I promise that it's something that I feel like you have a very rich imagination.
It makes me very vulnerable to conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Well,
did you know they found a Stargate in Iraq? Like, for real?
I got a heart like a prune. I want a snake through your dune. You know the moment is mine. I'm gonna slow to some time. I want to spit some exhaust. I wanna break through the frost. And when the moment is right, I'm gonna fly a kite. This ride is gonna be rough. This meat is gonna be tough. I got a heart like a beat. I feel the gas in my feet. This naked preacher will break the rest of the saints today. When the moment is right, I'm gonna go fly a kite. This is the moment, the very instant.
You tell me you don't think about choking on a nut.